You're listening to the Quint's podcast. Okay, hi guys, welcome to the podcast. I should be saying welcome to your therapy session where we prove Freud right.
Oh my god. Please, let's not do Freud.
I'm kidding.
Hey, what's up? How are you?
Work is so stressful, yeah.
Man, I feel like I'm wasting my youth.
I feel like I just can't sustain relationships.
Not fine. Thanks.
Before we talk about what we're here for, I'll just quickly introduce this podcast for everyone who's joining us for the first time. This is Not Fine, Thanks, Quint Fit's podcast series on everyday mental health, and I'm your host, Anushka. In this podcast, I bring together a bunch of people to talk about things that we don't always talk about, things that make us want to say, I'm not fine, thanks. So we've talked about burnout, bullying, body image issues, and so many other topics. So go check out our previous episodes. But right now, I'm joined here by Aparna and Nidhi. We're going to be talking about relationships, specifically romantic relationships, and how our relationships with our parents impacts our bonds and future adult relationships. Say hi, guys.
Hi. Thank you for having us.
I want you to introduce yourselves to our listeners. So, Nidhi, do you want to go first?
Okay, great. Hi, I am Nidhi. I lead the social media and audience team at the Quint on which you're listening this podcast. I'm 28 years old. Because we're talking about relationships today, let me just give you an idea of where I am. I was in a serious relationship for almost 5 years, but now I am actually recently single. So the disclaimer that I want to really put out is that I'll probably be telling you a few stories related to this topic. If I do refer to anybody indirectly, I don't mean any offense. I do not mean any harm. It's the kind of topic about which your views keep changing as you grow older. So I'm just like putting it out there that please do not take offense.
Yeah, very lengthy, detailed disclaimer.
I'm so sorry. I'm totally going to overshoot my time.
Okay, moving on to Aparna. Please tell us about you.
Hi, so I'm Aparna and I am a senior video producer with the Quint. I am 29 and I am not going to put out any disclaimers. Unlike Nidhi, I'm going to just go out there and talk about this topic. I have not talked about it actually much. So I am on like a very different wavelength from Nidhi right now.
Absolutely. I talk about it with anybody and everybody, Aparna.
And also, Aparna, you are married, unlike the two of us here.
Yes, I am married. I have been married for 3 years now.
Whoa.
Yes, I dated him for 3 years before we got married. I would like to say I'm very, very happily married right now.
Yay.
So to begin with, I just want to ask you guys, do you believe this is true? Do you think that your relationship with your parents or the way in which they interact with you, bring you up, affects the way in which you interact with your partners or
I think I'll let
bonds?
Aparna do the first bit and then I'll talk.
Okay.
So yes, I do think that it impacts, and not just like how they interact with us, but how they interact with each other. Because I have seen in my own family, like my father he shares everything with my mother, and she has 2, 4, 6 cents to give about everything. Even like she's a homemaker and he's a businessman. Even like things at work and the decisions that he should take. Like I always imagine that this is how relationships are. It's not that they never had flaws. They had their own issues that I just like grow up and see. As in like my father especially. So he has I told Anushka also about this when we were talking in office about this, that my father has like very angry personality. Everybody's scared of him in the family. Everybody's like, ooh, let's not say something or do something which is going to anger him or something. The same goes for me, because a lot of my friends are like, you are the mother hen of the group, but we are also very scared of you. I'm like, this is what everybody tells me about my father, and this is exactly what everybody is going to tell me about myself also. And that is something like my brother, especially, he keeps telling me about things that, oh, you're behaving just like your father.
So how
You're
so
behaving
so
just like
so
your
then
father.
were you looking for something a little bit calmer when it comes to your partner because of this? I'm just
Oh,
wondering.
yes. And yeah. That is exactly true. And this is exactly how my husband, Kaustav, he is the exact opposite, and he is always like super calm. And when I am like stressing about things, I'm like, why are you not equally stressing about this? Why are you not equally panicked about this?
And does it bother you when people tell you that, oh, you're acting like your father? Because I know
Oh
it
my
bothers.
God, it does. Because that's exactly the thing that I do not like about my father. I'm like, I need him to be a little calmer now that, especially now that he's older. Like, I see him trying. He knows that, his kids have grown up. He cannot show that kind of, anger and be like, you don't do this, you don't do that, and la la la.
Because you recognize this in your father and you're able to like tell him like, this is what it is. Are you kind of able to recognize that in yourself, in your relationships, and correct it?
Yes, I remember when I started dating Costa. So it took a very long time, but I started noticing that earlier he used to tell me something and I used to snap. And now when he says something to me like, oh, I want to do this, or let's do this, or I have done this, and मुझसे ये गलती हो गया है, and sometimes I listen to him and I'm like, okay. And he's like, really? Are you not gonna get angry? I said, no. I thought you were gonna get angry. I said, no, I'm not. He's like, okay. So I see these things when he reacts this way, like when he, has this surprised look on his face, like, oh, this didn't affect you as much as I thought it would. And that I take as small wins. So that
Commendable.
shows that,
Truly commendable.
this doesn't happen all the time, guys. This happens sometimes. But I believe that, I'm going like somewhere with this. So yeah.
Yeah, but it's really nice that you, I mean, overall have a pretty positive relationship with your parents. And actually, when I was trying to look for people to talk to in this podcast, I was having a hard time finding people who have like really good positive relationships with their parents. It's nice that you're here. So anyway, moving on to Nidhi, I actually want to ask you now, what is your relationship with your parents like? What has it been when you were growing up? What was it like for
So
you?
you've kind of laid the groundwork for it because you've already mentioned you were having a hard time finding people जिनके relations अच्छे रहे अपने parents के साथ. So clearly, I am the opposite of Aparna. The relations haven't been bad per se, but I kind of have grown up with a sense of detachment because my parents haven't been as I mean, they are emotionally involved with each other, but I don't know when it comes to us kids, or at least to me, because I'm also adopted, and they had me after 12 years of having my brother. I'm not sure if adoption is the issue, or if it's just just my personality, or their personality at that point. I've kind of grown up a little bit emotionally detached, in the sense that hugs weren't allowed in our. I mean, not allowed. It just didn't happen. Expressing emotions wasn't really like a thing in our house, whether it was extreme happiness or extreme sadness. Like, tears were absolute no. But also, extreme happiness always came with a slight thought that let's not be too happy. So I've kind of grown up detached emotionally that way with my parents.
When that the implications of that in your adulthood can go either way. So it can either be that you become completely uncomfortable with expressing your emotions and showing affection, or you crave it and you kind of overcompensate. So where do you feel like you've gone towards?
Absolutely the latter. So I am what I've gone towards is a desire for that kind of intimacy in all of my relationships, in all of my partners. Often leading to severe attachment issues, like not being able to get out of a relationship where I know that it's not going the way that I would want it to, but I've been so attached and that I found it very difficult to get out of it, despite the fact that I'm financially independent. I live on my own. I don't have to worry about those kinds of issues that a lot of people have to worry about. And every time I meet somebody new, that becomes a kind of what do you call it, a checkbox, right? Like that person needs to be emotionally expressive. That person needs to show their emotions, generally, but also through some kind of
Yeah,
physical
because that's
intimacy.
really because for in my case, like you mentioned, I have a similar background, maybe not to the extent that you had, but where showing affection or vocalizing your emotions is not something that we grew up doing. So for me, it's translated to like me being really awkward with emotions, and if someone is really open about their emotions with me, I don't know how to handle that, and I don't know how to reciprocate or like show affection to others, like even if I do feel it. And for you, where you say you don't know how to get out of relationships because you feel like you really need to latch onto it, I don't know how to commit myself to them. So it's like a completely opposite you know direction that we've gone from that one place. I find that quite
Yeah, well,
interesting.
three very different experiences. I'll become too vulnerable. That's a fear I also have. But I kind of, I kind of have to make sure that that person in an intimate, like a public, not a public space, but at least in a private space, that person is emotionally expressive, vocally, but also like in actions.
Like Aparna talked about her father's anger issues and how she finds that in herself and stuff. So Nidhi, is there any like something that you've noticed in yourself that you do in relationships which makes you go like, oh shit, like this is my parents' fault?
Oh my God, I am now really afraid of saying saying what I see. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to refer to this one incident that has really stayed with me. And I mean, I'm not proud of it, like of all the things that you don't really have a choice on what stays with you when it comes to your any relationships, right? So, once what happened, so my dad, I mean, they're very level-headed people, both my parents, but my father comes from a very different educational background. He has not been privileged throughout his life, but he's made sure that he's, kind of worked hard and become something, right? And my mom has been a homemaker throughout her life. And so my father once said to me that whenever you look for a partner for yourself, or we look for a partner for you, please make sure that you are intellectually compatible, because that's something I find missing. And I found that really offensive, and I told him off, and I said, oh my God, like, just why do you have to be so rude about this? And my mom is an extremely kind, giving, selfless woman. And for you to turn around, I mean, he was not in a good mood that day, and maybe he would retrieve a statement like this if I were to ask him about it today, and completely say that no, she has been with me through thick and thin, and it's not a necessary condition. But at that point, when he said that to me, that please find intellectual compatibility, that has kind of stayed with me for some reason, and it continues to kind of, I'm always making sure that that the person that I am with is intellectually compatible. So this topic of equal reciprocation, it's extremely touchy, as it should be, right? But what you don't realize it, how much of this topic is actually impacted by how you've seen your parents interact with each other, right? Whether it has been way unequal, or whether it has been somewhat equal, or whether they subscribe to the norms of what a husband and wife should be. So this comes up a lot in relationships, and you somehow, I mean, not, I mean, if it has been unequal, like in my case, I consider that the the emotional investment that my mom put, her emotional contribution to the relationship is far greater than my father's. And I somehow, while I try as like a feminist, as a modern day woman, as an independent woman, that should not be the case in my relationships. And मैंने अभी इतना लंबा lecture दिया in the beginning of the podcast, talking about how it's really important for me for the other person to be emotionally available. but somehow a lot of my relationships mirror that kind of inequality, and I'm always surprised at how that somehow happens.
Yeah. So I have this theory that, in every relationship, there is a giver and there is a receiver. And in my parents' relationship, that giver has always been my mother. Okay, not always. In most cases, has been my mother emotionally, and my father has been on the receiving end of it. But after I got married, I had another set of parents, my husband's parents. And when I look at their relationship, of course, they can't be 100% the epitome of being the equal in their relationship, but they sort of are in many ways they are. So when I see them and when I see how it has shaped my husband and then how it's shaping our relationship, so I think that's a really nice, meeting point from where I'm coming from and from how he has seen his parents being the equal forces in the relationship and being the equals.
But also, anything else, any other ways in which you find your parents' behavior reflecting in
So
your
I'm
own?
my dad has always been very particular about things, very organized. So that quality of always kind of being in control, um, being organized, but then that translates into being in control. That he has passed on, that my father has kind of passed on to me, and that does impact relationship, because then that's something that I don't want my partner to come and mess up. Like, don't come and mess up my house. Like, don't leave your things around. And
Oh
it's
my,
meant.
Nidhi.
Sorry, Aparna, you already kind of knew who I am. Okay, at work. So it's
No, I'm the same. I'm the same, and I have just like my father also has passed this on to me because I am also exactly like you are telling.
I
I'm
And
seeing.
again,
It's
I
like a
tell you what, like I have the same father. He's a army person,
oh
very
my
organized,
god,
very
that's like
disciplined.
the
So in my case, it's
gold
opposite.
standard.
I'm messy. I'm messy, and maybe it's like some kind of a childhood
oh, that's your
subliminal
rebel.
rebellious
That's
thing.
your yes, yes.
But yeah, so it's gone again in an opposite direction with me. But do you guys feel like it also makes you controlling in your, like, do you feel like you need to be in control in the relationship, and if things are out of your control, it just frustrates you, or you feel disoriented?
So I used to feel like that. I haven't even told this to Costa, but yeah, when I look back, I think that yes, initially when this relationship started, because I wanted to be so much in control of uh, of of how things were going. So I used to be like the one calling the shots and stuff like that. But gradually, I think that disappeared because I realized that it's not something that I can do or I am like comfortable doing because I mean I used to do it for some other
And you
reason,
get
but then I
tired
thought
also,
that
right? Like always calling the shots can
it's
be really
exhausting.
exhausting. Yeah.
It is so, and then
And also,
so
maybe, I mean, I don't know him, but I'm assuming that it's also coming from him, where he makes you feel like you don't always have to be
always
like,
need to. Yes, exactly. You have like you feel safe, you feel confident, and you feel like okay, I don't need to be taking so much trouble for everything. But initially I was, and also because seeing my father in control of everything. But for him, I think it came from the situations and his childhood because he was raised by a single mother. My grandfather died when my father was 4 months old. So he's never had a father. So he did not know how to be, he never knew what fatherhood is or how fathers are. He's never seen that in his life. So when I think that's something my mother told me once because I was complaining to her that, why does he need to control everything? Why does he want to be in control of everything? Why does he get ticked off when something is going, out of his hands or something is not working as he wants it to work? And my mother told me that, I know you will think that I'm defending him, but you have to think that he's never seen how to be a father. He's never had a father. So for him, it's it means controlling everything. It means being overprotective. It means overbearing. And it means, to be in control of where your child is going, I will drop you. Where you're coming from, I will pick you. He's not letting you have that space because he thinks this is what he thinks fatherhood is. And that changed the way I look at my father. And
Yeah, and that's interesting that you mentioned that because these are realizations that you have as you grow older and when
exactly. Yeah.
of your that your parents are also products of generational trauma, things that have happened to them as kids.
Yeah, and which is
It's
why
like
as you grow older, you kind of start liking your parents. If you don't like them initially, you
Exactly.
start liking them a
Yes.
little bit more because you're like, okay, you were like this, but I kind of get it. Why? Like, let's not just make it
Why?
like you are essentially emotionally unavailable, or you have too much anger or anything like that. So nobody's like that. Like,
Yeah.
it's situations that shape them too, and as you grow older you kind of start relating to them a little bit more. Okay, I get it. We try to be like our parents in certain ways, and then try not to be like them in other ways, but we end up somehow imbibing and showing qualities that we don't know exist within us, and then which can be traced back to our relationships with our parents and their relationships with each other.
Okay, so now let's hear from an actual professional. I have here with me Dr. Ruksheda Syeda. She is a psychiatrist and psychotherapist with over 20 years of experience, and she's based out of Bombay. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Ruksheda.
Hello, Anushka. Thank you so much for having me.
It's always a pleasure to speak to you, Doctor.
It's my pleasure entirely, Anushka, and I'm so glad that you guys are doing this.
So getting right into it, I just want to begin by asking you how our relationship with our parents shapes the way in which we form bonds when we're older and the way in which we behave or act in relationships, and also attachment styles, as it were.
Right. So what happens is that because our parents are the early attachment figures, right? That's how we start to think of the world and think of ourselves vis-a-vis the world. So Anushka, early childhood experiences, they really form our biological base, social base, emotional base, isn't it? And when we talk about early childhood experiences, we're talking about not only from infancy to maybe when I'm a toddler, but right up to my preteen and even in my teens. Because we know that abuse can be of different kinds. Abuse can be neglect. Abuse can be a real or a perceived aspect of it, right? If my parent is scolding me, my parent might not be very angry with me, but maybe I am perceiving that there's a lot of anger and hostility. So that's also a trauma, right? So when we're talking about emotional trauma or childhood trauma, sometimes parents and adults and schools even will just kind of laugh it off, scoff it off, saying that, oh, this was nothing and you're just making too much out of it. But what we do need to understand is that a person's experience, whether that person is a child or an adult, is relevant because that's their truth and that's their history. And all of that is going to impact it. Just like I mentioned before, the biology, the sociology, and the emotionality of it. So we definitely want to be aware that, okay, what we say to children or around children is going to be impactful, is going to be meaningful, even if we think that, oh, they can't hear or they don't understand or they don't process.
So you mentioned neglect. So I just wanted to bring that up. How does, neglect or a lack of affection in one's childhood, how does that manifest?
So when we talk, so like I said, the reason I started with neglect is that's one of the most prevalent abuse that we see in childhood, and which is most prevalent overlooked abuse in childhood. The neglect can be of social neglect, that oh, I don't have access to certain things or the other as a child, or it can be neglect of, like, material things, or it can be neglect of nutrition. It can, but here I know that we're emphasizing neglect of emotional responses and emotional availability that can be real or perceived. So a lot of the times parents will come and tell me that, okay, my this child is okay, but my this child needs a lot of attention. And I tell them, okay, if your child requires attention more than the other child, that's okay, because every child is going to have a different need. And you cannot complain and say that there is something wrong with the child and they shouldn't need this much of attention. Impact on interpersonal relationships. So when we are seeing an avoidance of a certain kind of affection that we may see somewhere else, let's say in movies or television, or with our peers, with other children from our school, and how they seem to be so physically close to anybody, not just their parents. So that kind of we see that avoidance in that aspect as a child, that could make me emotionally pull away from even if I'm in a relationship, right? It
Right.
can because I'm not going to be comfortable being able to express my affection verbally or physically, and also not accept a physical or verbal expression of affection. And that somehow, somewhere, can also make me like a supremely independent person who, guards the independence from a very defensive point of view. And I can, like, a person can shut down. That's why we are so insistent on parenting skills and childhood trauma, because parenting skills are going to see to it that those attachment bonds are present and strong. And if that happens, then, and if there is some kind of trauma that the child goes through, these particular bonds are the ones that are going to heal the child, and hopefully then also help that child to grow into a more, emotional and mentally healthy person and individual adult, right?
Something else that we discussed, Dr. Ruksheda, was how we often see parents' attributes reflect in ourselves in the way we behave, and it can lead to certain amount of frustration, and especially when you're not able to kind of change that, or it's something that you especially don't like in your parents and you see that reflected in you. So to kind of tie it together, how would you go about breaking out of this cycle?
So yeah, that's a very good point that you bring up, right? First, how do we recognize what's going on with us and what may be the possible source of our patterns? And second, how do we then fix that, right? So first of all, if you're seeing that, okay, yeah, you're somebody, especially when you're in a relationship, you're happy, but you're irritable, you lack an ability of conflict resolution in relationships. If you have issues, if you have problems with letting go of a relationship, whether that was a toxic ex or whether that's, like, a mutually consensual breakup, but you're not being able to let go of that. If you feel that you just come close, but the minute things get serious, there are commitment issues, and you are a serial monogamist. When you see all of these things, that you feel that no, I need to fix my partner or change my partner or make this partner good, and you feel that only if I'm useful to a partner, and then I will be loved, and you feel that there's a transactional element to your relationship. All of these signs could be, and I'm emphasizing could be, because you have issues with emotional management and emotional intelligence. And it could be because of things that the emotional baggage that you had from your parents' relationship or other relationships that you may have seen, or childhood trauma and abuse that you may not have suffered. So what we can do is that as an adult, when we are recognizing these things, don't jump to a conclusion, don't self-diagnose. That's the first thing I'm going to tell you. Because a lot of the times people will come with a preconceived notion saying that, okay, this is my problem. And even if you're trying to tell them, no, this isn't the problem, but the problem lies somewhere else, that focus is very difficult for us to shift, right? If you feel there are certain issues that you are facing in your current relationship, or some, just as a person, you might want to definitely seek professional help to understand what's going on. If you have mental health issues, or if you have a lack of life skills, so to say, in terms of relationships, doesn't mean that you can't get it. You can't help yourself get better, be better in as a partner and as an individual. We encourage more and more couples to, take couples therapy. So it's not about, oh, so that you all don't break up. No, it's about how do you manage yourself.
Thanks for listening, guys. New episodes of Not Fine Thanks come out every Wednesday, so stay tuned.